Good evening. I call the special meeting for the Ames City Council for Thursday, February 9th. Evening, Council staff. Look forward as we continue to doing our budget presentations. Turn it over to Steve and Barb.
Barb's ready to start. That she was all prepared for the snow tonight, but we didn't get it, so we just wanted you to see that.
Snow pictures for you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be presenting the SciRide budget. It does start on page 140 and goes through page 147. Before I start, I do want to take a moment and introduce the division managers that I have with me tonight. So I have Chris Crippen. She's the Assistant Director of Operations. We have James Rendell, Assistant Director of Fleet and Facility. And then we have Rob Jennings, our budget analyst. I should also mention the budget was approved by our board, Transit Board, at their December meeting. So this next budget year, we'll continue to focus on our staffing shortage and rebuilding our ridership. The budget supports our goal of connecting people to safe and efficient transportation that exceeds customers' expectations, and it aligns with the goal of reducing carbon emissions and providing a sustainable community in which to live. Recruiting and retaining frontline employees will be critical so that we can meet the service demands and restore our ridership. So maintaining our large ridership base has always been a focus of our work. Over $2.6 million of federal funding is tied to our high ridership and our ability to outperform transit agencies in larger communities. Over the last 2 years, ridership has shifted significantly due to changes in work patterns and educational offerings. These fluctuations are not unique to SciRide, but a trend that's seen nationwide by lots of transit agencies. Currently, our ridership is about 70% of pre-pandemic levels, and we are projecting it to continue to rise. Ridership has always mirrored what is happening at ISU. About 95% of our riders are Iowa State students, and we are anticipating ridership this next year will be about 4.1 million passengers. And while ridership continues to recover, challenges remain with our staffing levels, supply chain reliability, which I know you've heard, and overall economic uncertainty, which I know you've also heard in budget presentations. In this environment, we are pleased to present a budget with the minimal increase to our 3 local funding partners. We were able to keep the funding partners increase low because our increase, we had an increase in our federal revenue source. The Infrastructure Invest Act, Jobs Act included a substantial investment in public transit. So our regular federal funding has increased by 65%, and it's an 85% increase over last year's adopted budget. This funding includes, many of you have heard me talk about this, small transit-intensive cities, or what we call STIC funding. 95% of that increase from the federal revenue source comes from that STIC funding. This funding, again, is the funding that's directly tied to high ridership and our ability to outperform transit systems serving over populations of 200,000. For the city, we are requesting an additional $41,569, which is a 2% increase. The transit tax levy is a slight reduction over last year. It's about 59 cents per 1,000 valuation. During the CIP presentation, I did talk about planned purchases over the next 5 years and how successfully securing state and federal grants really keeps our system in a state of good repair, but it also helps lower the funding commitment to the 3 funding partners. We were fortunate to receive a federal discretionary grant, which will allow us to purchase 3 additional battery electric buses and 2 additional 60-foot articulated buses. That will increase capacity on the number 23 Orange route with no additional operating costs. And both will support the goal of reducing carbon emissions. We also received a discretionary state grant to complete a much-needed shop rehabilitation project. This will include improving areas in the facility that are pictured here that were 40 years old. It'll improve overall safety and air quality within this portion of the facility. We'll continue to recognize the importance of technology. It allows us to stay in line with the changing needs of the community, improve system efficiencies, and our overall customer experience. We are able to be more agile and responsive to changes in travel patterns and ridership behaviors because we're relying on our real-time passenger information that was shown there. And we'll continue to invest in the infotainment bus monitors, which are shown here. And those are the monitors that display the upcoming stops along the route. This information helps passengers that are new to our system. It also assists with accessibility and ease of access. We also recently added demand response software to our flexible services, which is Moonlight Express and the Ease route that serves the East Ames area and the DMAC Academy. So this new software, this is kind of a picture of it, allows passengers to self-schedule rides on their phones, much like you would do an Uber or a Lyft. And it will support future expansion in areas of the community that maybe fixed routes aren't currently serving. I should also mention on this one that if you don't have a smartphone, you can still call into SciRide and we'll schedule that for you. So fixed route expenditures are up, increases mainly due to increases in wages, fuel, and parts. I know you've heard this and it's not a surprise. The job market is highly competitive right now. Nationwide, 96% of all transit agencies are experiencing difficulties in recruiting and retaining enough employees. In September, the Transit Board and City Council approved increasing our hourly wage rate for our part-time employees. This increase has helped address our labor shortage. However, there are other factors affecting our ability to hire and retain enough employees. We were experiencing significant delays scheduling the CDL skills testing. So this is the driving portion of the CDL licensing that's done with the Iowa Department of Transportation. So those delays were extending training for our employees anywhere from a month to several months. And because these employees cannot operate a SciRide bus while they're waiting to take this licensing, they're not getting paid during that time. So in order to kind of help address that obstacle, we did work at the state level to get the expanded legislation so that public transit agencies could become third-party CDL testers. So I'm happy to say that July 1st, that was signed into law, and we can now administer third-party CDL testing on behalf of the Iowa Department of Transportation. So that helps us, but it also increases CDL skills testing around the state. So we can offer CDL testing for other departments or anybody else in the state of Iowa.
That's great.
So both of these changes really have positively impacted our staffing level. It's reduced time delays, and it's made hiring and training more efficient for us. Commodity expenditures are also increasing under fixed route. So fuel, parts, and lubricants account for the largest portion of this for SciRide. Due to the extreme volatility of the fuel market, the Transit Board did authorize transferring an additional $500,000 from our operations fund closing balance to offset any potential budget shortfalls this year and next year. We've also increased our parts and lubricants to allow for disruptions in supply chain that we've had. These are parts that are just common items purchased for the repair and maintenance of our vehicles. And then Dial-A-Ride is our complimentary paratransit service for people who are unable to use our fixed route services. This allows access to members of the community who may not otherwise be able to leave their home. It also allows others to stay in their homes. So working with HRDA closes the transportation gap for seniors and people with disabilities. Expenditures in this area are up over last year due to increased ridership on this service. As you know, we've worked with HRDA to raise awareness and shift eligible users onto our Dial-A-Ride services. We are anticipating that ridership on Dial-A-Ride this next year will be about 14,000 passengers, which is the highest ridership we've had on our Dial-A-Ride service. I should also mention, though, because this is contracted out, SciRide's operational expenses for Dial-A-Ride can be federally funded. So that shifts ridership. Shifting ridership to Dial-A-Ride really helps to ensure the most economical cost to the customer and really to the Ames community. So one of the goals for SciRide, one of our goals is connecting people to their community. So to opportunities, to education, and to the things that are important in their lives. For many, SciRide is a lifeline. Having access to frequent, reliable, and affordable transportation is really key to closing that transportation gap. We will continue to work on relationships with community partners like Ames School District and DMAC, kind of working together to ensure that access to transportation isn't a barrier to education. Equity and access will continue to play a role in our service delivery. So this next year, we'll continue to work on attracting and retaining frontline employees and rebuilding our large ridership base. I would like to, before I conclude, take a moment and just recognize our employees. I am grateful to all of our employees and really their commitment to SciRide. They have carried us through a pandemic and now 2 years of unprecedented hiring challenges. And whether they're on the front lines or behind the scenes, their dedication and commitment to SciRide has been amazing to watch. They understand our mission and really the importance of delivering excellence. And we know that challenges lie ahead, but I am confident that we will continue to deliver the safe, dependable services that have made us one of the best in the nation if we focus on connecting people, streamlining our processes, and delivering excellence. We'll continue to meet the needs of a community as diverse and dynamic as Ames.
Could you go back to the slide that you showed the route? I missed. People can call for a route for special pickup, like you said, like Uber.
Yeah.
Not that you are.
It's
Uber.
going to play through it. So yeah, so this one right here.
So what is it? What's that service again?
So this is a new demand response management software that we just recently added. It's only for our flexible services right now, which is the East Ames service area. And it's also for Moonlight Express. So what you would do is on your smartphone, just like you would do with an Uber or Lyft, you would schedule, this example right here is a perfect one. I want to pick up at City Hall going to DMAC. And then it would give you a time that they could pick you up, and then you would schedule the ride.
So the reason I'm asking is there's someone I know that has a job out there on East Ames and doesn't have a vehicle. And so I was not aware about this. So do they have to get to a specific bus stop or any bus stop or?
Yeah, so how it works is they would need to get to City Hall. So it works exactly the same way that the Ease route does. So it goes from City Hall but they could take a regular fixed route to Ease. And then when they're on that fixed route, you would schedule that call. This started January 16th. Is that, so we just recently rolled this out. So January 16th, we had a soft launch on Moonlight because quite honestly, the two services are dramatically different. So the Ease route doesn't carry as many passengers. So how we marketed that on the Ease route is we literally went out and talked to everybody and explained to them how this works. And then on Moonlight Express, we've pushed out a lot on social media, and then we've gone to some of the bars and put up posters and stuff on how to ride it.
So will it take it to the destination or just to a bus stop out there in East Ames?
It'll take them to the destination. It might not take them to the, actually it pretty goes to most door to door, but I would say it's probably more like curb to curb.
So we have a lot of hotels out there and housekeeping staff, other people who may not have transportation. This is really cool. So are you letting people who run the hotels, manage the hotels, know that this is available? And if not, is that something you would consider?
Yeah, and I can let Chris speak to this. I mean, I know Chris
So
has pushed out a lot of
We
information.
do market to the hotels,
Okay.
and actually we get a lot of the guests that are staying at the hotels who
Oh.
use the service. So they all get brochures from us and they know it.
But I do think it's an opportunity to expand our services. So we're kind of introducing it with these two, but ultimately we see it as maybe an opportunity. We want to kind of trial it, see how it's going, but to maybe serve areas of the community that aren't currently served by fixed routes, where they could be served by this more kind of micro transit, I guess, for lack of a better word.
And what's the cost for that? Is it the same as, it's
It's
just
the same
fair?
as the fixed route. Yep.
It's the fixed route price? Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Could you review again the increase in federal dollars? I didn't quite get all that. I think you gave it to us as a percentage. What is the federal increase in dollars?
Let me go just to that page so I give you the exact number.
I apologize if it's in here. I tried to find it.
No, not sure if it is, so. So our federal revenue source went from, I'm just gonna round, 2.2 million to 4.1 million.
And those are one-time funds.
No, this is ongoing, so this is because of the Infrastructure Invest and Jobs Act. So this is the appropriation for the next 5 years.
Okay. So it's a little bit unusual normally. So I don't know, most people may not realize Steve makes this tattoo to our arms that one-time funds are only used for one-time infrastructure and things, not ongoing expenses. That may be a surprise to people, but that is true. So
Me too, I have it.
you have that. Yeah, so I'll have that tattoo. Corey, you're next.
On my neck.
So, but that's a lot of money,
Mhm.
and that's awesome. But are these dollars being used for any ongoing expenses, or are these being used for capital only?
We're using these dollars for wages and benefits.
Okay. And so should that make us, I mean, is it all being used for wages and benefits?
You move some to the reserve. didn't you?
Yes, I did. So it's just a little bit confusing because we do have one-time dollars. So when you approved the 22-23 budget, you approved one-time dollars for operating expenses, which goes against what we're supposed to do. But in order to use those funds, we use that. What we're doing now with this is most of it, it will go to wages and benefits because it's easier for the city auditing system and for the federal auditing system, the training review, for it to go to wages and benefits. Our, I got it right here. Our wages and benefits is about $9 million. So this is not enough to cover it. So we will put all this towards wages and benefits.
So if we didn't have the federal dollars, what would the amount of the shortfall be? What's the size of that? If you know.
I don't know if I know that answer. I mean, the difference, obviously, if I can do the math, is about $2 million, but we were able to transfer money, and that's where you were talking about, to the capital. Do you know the answer to that? I don't know the answer. I
Are
could.
you asking what would the funder increase percentage be instead of
Well, I'm just
2%?
trying to understand. So there's going to be a future council at some point who's going to be looking, is going to be sitting here dealing a budget meeting. But that money, unless it's renewed, which it's possible it could be renewed, but assuming after 5 years that funding source goes away, then there's going to be a shortfall in a budget in 5 years. And I'm just trying to understand today, what is the amount that represents?
It's not really a shortfall, but I know what you're saying. It has to be replaced. A lot of that was for bonuses, which are kind of one-time, remember, one-time things, and training. There is some increase in hourly wage, don't get me wrong. But I think you're just asking, what if we lost the $2 million, what would all this have to pay? How much more?
That's
would all this have to
correct.
And I don't know the answer to that. And I obviously can only tell you this funding level is for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Appropriations, it's hard to say typically. I mean, Cyride, I will say that the transit board has, in my opinion, been very conservative in their budgeting. There are a lot of transit agencies that rely very heavily on the federal dollars. We don't do that because we have the luxury of the 3 local funding partners. So I don't know what the amount would be, though. Long story
So
short.
I'm not losing sleep about this. I don't want to communicate that I am, because we wouldn't have Cyride if it wasn't for federal dollars. So if the general public thinks that we pay for Cyride, we don't. It's heavily federally subsidized. But someone needs to be thinking about, for that council down the road, we're going to have to wean ourselves off of those dollars, because that gap is going to have to be made up somehow.
Well, I think Barb's going to take a break and help out us this year, the funders. But she's been charged to look at what will the system look like at post pandemic? What's the right sizing? What's the world going to be like? So we're going to revisit how we're going to right size in the future, and that may affect funding in a lot of ways, either
Absolutely.
down or up. So this is just a temporary type of thing until we figure out where we're going.
Yeah.
It's like we did a resource recovery plant. Now we got to look at SIRIDE, which we just looked at. SIRIDE
Under 2.0.
2.0 has been 3 or 4
But
years.
I mean, a typical increase for you guys is 3.5,
Yep.
3.5%. I mean, it's 2% because we're using some of these dollars to that. We have done pro formas, and in the out years, I've
Yeah.
put 3.5%, so that I don't think. Again, I'm going to go back. I feel like the board has taken a conservative approach. I don't think we are relying hugely on federal dollars. I mean, obviously we are, and that's
Yeah.
why we want to regrow our high ridership. I mean, we are relying on it, but I think that
But
we're
it's-
not going to be in the same position of some agencies if
It's
this
heavy.
goes
That-
away.
Look at the increase in fuel. Okay, so you could say we're building in that's ongoing operations. I hope in 2 years that's going to go down. We won't need as much money just for the fuel portion of it.
Right, as we move towards electric buses.
Yeah.
Since this is the point really more for the bigger concern for the other transit agencies, the challenge is you get sort of used to the federal trough.
Mhm.
And if those funds go away, then you're really in a tight spot. So future councils will, depending on what you do with SIRIDE, will have to think about life without that funding stream. That's only my point. So thank you for that.
Barb, going back to the federal funding, I think you mentioned that 2.6 million of federal funding is tied to ridership.
Mhm.
Are those ridership numbers fixed numbers that are a mark you have to hit, or is it on a curve so that if all the transit agencies have fewer riders, the curve lets you still say we're exceeding all these other agencies?
Yeah, so it's a comparison between your peers. So it is kind of a curve, for lack of a better word. But so it's how we outperform transit agencies of populations above 200,000. So the best example is we carry more riders than Des Moines. Are we more efficient? How many more riders? And based on that efficiency, there's 6 categories, and you get funding for each one of those categories. SIRIDE hits 5 of those 6 categories pretty routinely. Most transit agencies are about 65 to 70% of pre-pandemic levels. So I don't see stick funding going away. I mean, that was just changed in the legislation. It used to be 0%, 1%, and now it's 3% of the appropriation goes to the stick funding. So I think it's important to continue to have that, but it is based on what the over 200,000s did, 200,000 to 1 million, and then you're
So as long as everybody's having the
Mhm.
same kinds of challenges, we're still doing well among peers.
And they've allowed us to continue to use our 2019 ridership because everybody is struggling in this area. And it is, could be disproportionate to universities
Mhm.
because if you are more online classes, then you have a different population riding the bus.
That's good to know. I'm glad that they're giving some credit to university communities in that sense, because we do have unique challenges.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have further questions for transit?
No.
All right, then, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And thank
Appreciate
you
the
for your staff working through the pandemic and continuing to lead us onward in this challenging time.
Yeah.
So in case anyone is wondering, the mayor is on a budget phone call with some mayors around the state for probably the next hour. And so I will be taking the meeting as Mayor Pro Tem. Our next presentations will be from the General Government and Internal Services side of the house.
Good evening, Mayor and council members,
Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Tonight, I'm going to be going over the budget presentation for the city council budget and the city manager's office. Now, normally, we try to find photos of you all participating in events throughout the year, and I'm not sure that we got all of you in a photo this year. So we decided to put the yearbook photos of you up so that at least you're in there once. The budget for the city council starts on page 230. The city council met in late January, a couple of weeks ago, to review the 2-year goals that you have established. And you've given city staff a variety of tasks to undertake in order to complete and address those goals. And we're roughly at the halfway point of the 2-year goals. So this next year, we're going to be focusing on finalizing the adjustments that you've made to those goals and tasks, and then ensuring that they can be accomplished by the city staff. So we'll be coming back to you with the adjustments to the tasks in the next couple of weeks. The council participated in a variety of moments of pride in our community over the past year. And these have included ribbon cuttings for Tahira and Lobhira Park, the new community gardens on Delaware Avenue, and at the new Ada Hayden accessible kayak launch and the Story Walk project at Moore Memorial Park. And in addition, the council, many members of the council attended the Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration last month. Now, in addition to those celebratory events, the council members participated in a variety of special events, including some hosted by the city council. And these have included the council night at the band shell, the mayor and council's bike ride, the bike to work week breakfast, and the healthy estate walk. And then Welcome Fest at Iowa State University, where you had the opportunity to welcome new students to the community and interact with them and learn about them. So the community appreciates the opportunity to meet with and chat with their council members. In the next year, the council will have the unique opportunity to participate in not only these events, but also as a host for visitors from around the state of Iowa, the country, and the globe as part of the 50th running or ride of RAGBRAI this summer. So that concludes the city council budget portion of the presentation. And if there are no questions, I'm happy to move on to the city manager's office.
Any questions for Brian? Okay.
All right. So the city manager's office is focused on providing major project support for a variety of council initiatives and other activities going on throughout the city. These are a short list of some of the major projects we've been working on. These have included the Climate Action Plan, Waste to Energy Options Study. Both of those have involved working heavily with outside consultants. The Fitch Family Indoor Aquatic Center has involved a considerable amount of our efforts to help coordinate along with Parks and Recreation. The development of the Sci-Town agreement with Iowa State University and understanding how that will function on university property and also the impacts to city utilities and related services. The link, which has involved a development agreement, analysis about how the TIF component will work, and working with a variety of city departments to make sure that we can provide service to that development. And then in addition, coordinating work on the Steve Schenker Downtown Plaza, which is underway across the street as we speak.
Brian, do you have any updates for us on Sci-Town or the link discussions?
Sure. For Sci-Town, we have continued to discuss with university staff regarding the financial aspects of how that will work. And we think that we have the main principles hammered out, and we're finalizing the language in a memorandum of understanding about that. We are also working on the utilities portion of that development. It really relates to utilities, traffic improvements that are called for as a result of the development, and then how certain services like law enforcement and fire protection, those kinds of things will work. That'll be a separate agreement that that we continue to refine. And in the next couple of weeks, we think we'll be at a point where we can bring that to you to present. And with regard to the link, we've been working with an outside law firm to help us finalize the TIF agreement, and we've sent that back with comments just this last week. We expect that we will get a final version of that back, have the developer have an opportunity to review it, and then put it on the agenda for council consideration on February 28th.
Thank you.
In addition to those projects, the staff in the city manager's office is providing support for a variety of commissions and other outside organizations. And these include Asset, which is, I believe, where Deb Childroth is right now. The Commission on the Arts, Public Art Commission, Human Relations Commission, the Partner Cities Association, and the Campus and Community Commission. And then two additional efforts that the staff assist with that are kind of unique this year: the Climate Action Plan Supplemental Input Committee, and then I've started now going to the Downtown Ames board meetings as an ex officio, a non-voting member. Oh, before we get to that, so I just want to point out.
We didn't see it.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I just wanted to point out that the city manager's office budget has some adjustments compared to some previous years. So if you look at the numbers in there, you might notice some jumping around. And the major change is that previously we reflected the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator position in the HR budget. And now it's being moved to the city manager's office budget for the adjusted year and the proposed budget. And so that causes, when you look at those numbers, to make it appear like there's a big swing, but there's a corresponding change in the HR budget. And then the second point to note is that we continue to have a vacancy in the management analyst position. We budget funds for this position should we proceed with filling it, but we have prioritized completing recruitments in other departments as opposed to focusing on this one. So so long as that position remains unfilled, the unused money is available for, that rolls into your balance of funding for one-time projects that we're able to accomplish. So those are a couple of context notes for you as you go through the city manager's office budget.
Does anyone have additional questions for Brian?
So is someone absorbing that management analyst position that's being absorbed, those functions elsewhere within the organization? Not really.
We use that to provide analysis and study, research, and we offer that to all departments. So we haven't been able to do that, and that's why it slows down some of the assignments you give to us, because they have to allow their existing staff. Also, we wanted that to involve, as we have more pressure on us as far as expenditures, we want that to evolve to get more active in becoming the grantsmanship person, which would be very beneficial to all departments. But again, I'm kind of nervous about filling these because I don't know if I'll have to cut them out in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I think it's an important position, but we've held it open, and it's caused the existing staff to do the analysis, which has slowed down completion of projects. That's what it's been.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe next up, we have our city clerk, Renee. Brian kind of blew your big intro there by
Yeah, he did.
showing your slide.
And I don't know how to advance. Okay. Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem. My budget begins on page 234. I'm super excited to share with you a whole new look to the city clerk's office. As you know, this is a big role to step into, but we have a new, dedicated, and capable staff that have excelled in their roles thus far. Carly Watson, who transitioned from the city manager's office in October, Grace Banstrick came aboard in October as well and is with us tonight. And Jeremy Nevis became an official City of Ames employee on February 1st. As we all transitioned into our new roles, we began by making a list of everything the city clerk's office is responsible for, from facilitating construction contracts to preparing the city council agenda and administrative management of liquor licenses. We then reviewed the procedures for each duty and streamlined as needed. We have had meetings with 2 departments so far to determine how their behind-the-scenes work impacts items coming into our office. We continue to learn our assigned duties as well as cross-train in all functions our office performs, so service to internal and external customers is at its highest level of excellence. 2 major changes that we have implemented thus far include staff support for Zoning Board of Adjustment and Civil Service. We determined returning the administrative support for ZBA and Civil Service to their natural homes of Planning and Housing and Human Resources, maximized efficiencies, and eased communication strains. Staff in the city clerk's office have also absorbed the data entry of records into the file management system, thus reducing our part-time staffing needs. We also have a meeting coming up to learn how to maximize using an existing city resource of Microsoft Teams to collate our various workflows with other departments associated with city council meetings and tracking referrals. Now I would like to provide an overview of your diligent work to the citizens of Ames. As you are aware, your service requires a great deal of time, and a lot of that time is spent in meetings. You had 45 city council meetings and workshops last fiscal year. This equated to about 102.5 hours in meetings, averaging 2 hours and 16 minutes per meeting. We wrote 617 resolutions and 30 ordinances in that time period, and we prepared 189 council action summaries or referrals for items either in the non-agenda packet or from a staff report that you directed action on, and we track these items through completion. We are committed to continuing collaboration with other departments and with the mayor and council to advance the total city perspective. I had a couple more slides, but.
Get 'em.
Do you have any questions?
So it sounds like we're doing a little bit better this year than we have been. It seems like we usually hover around 51 meetings a year, and they seem a little bit shorter. Or is that just my imagination?
I think last year you averaged 2 hours and 42 minutes per meeting, so
Close.
we're efficient.
Well, we can probably use that, right? Any other questions for Renee? If not, thank you very much
Thank
and
you.
welcome
Thank
to
you.
the staff.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our public relations officer, Susan.
That's true.
Hi, good evening. I always like to start my presentation with the Public Relations Office mission that we developed a couple of years ago, that the purpose of our office is to brand a positive city identity and to ensure that the city of Ames is recognized as the premier provider of municipal services in a vibrant, innovative, progressive university community. So that the Public Relations Office budget is on page 238 and 239. You see our vision up there, and I just want to make sure everybody knows, although you see my face here today, that I am part of a team, and it takes a team to accomplish our mission. I'm supported by Christy Marnin, who is Public Relations Assistant. You don't see her very often, but she works very hard in the office and has been with us 7 years. Also, Bill Gebhardt is with me today. Courtney Hinders is in our print shop, and she provides a lot of assistance in graphics. And then Bill has his part-time staff, including Aaron, Graydon, and Kasich. So how do we accomplish our mission? Well, as most of you know, we have a variety of tools in our toolbox, in our communications toolbox, and I know that you're familiar with a lot of these. We send out a lot of press releases. We're averaging more than 200 a year, which is which keeps us busy. Some days you get a lot of them in your email boxes. Some weeks are slower than others, but we continue to push those out because we find them effective. We do 2 different newsletters, both monthly. One is internal, City Slickers, which has moved to a digital format. And we're really having fun exploring that idea of embedding video and having live links in there. But we also do City Side, which is the printed city newsletter that goes in your utility bills. Have a very active presence on social media, and we've tried to be more strategic on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor posts. We have more than a dozen Facebook pages, but I'll be honest, there's probably about 8 of them that I monitor regularly. We have more than 75,000 followers on those Facebook pages, and there is overlap. It's not unique visitors or followers. There's probably overlap between those pages, and several more thousand on those other platforms. So we'd use those as much as we can. We really appreciate the council's support of some website improvements. We have a website improvement committee that started meeting in this summer. It's made up of people from various departments. We have more than 50 web administrators that work on our web, and we have a smaller group that's working on the website improvement committee. We're focusing on 3 main areas of improvement, which are navigation of our website, its appearance on mobile devices, so that responsive design element, and then maintaining ADA compliance or accessibility. So at this point in the process, we have began negotiations with our current vendor. We came up basically with a list of things that were must-haves for us. We're going to see if they're able to meet those needs. And if they can, then we'll move forward with more and more input from users and back. So current Facebook users and our admins on the back end. So we need to continue to get more feedback on the look and the feel and the navigation of the website, as long as we can get a back end that fits all our other needs.
Before we move on, Susan, I want to just thank you for the work you're doing on the press releases and the social media. So as the Ames Tribune has declined in its coverage of what we're doing, it's just been essential that we sort of try to somehow make up that gap. And so I don't know how people follow what's going on if it wasn't for the press releases and social media pieces. And I want to also thank the Iowa State Daily. Your coverage has stepped up big time over the last few months. So really appreciate what you folks are doing. But I think the social media feeds have been very effective and thoughtful and funny. I like humor. So I like the creativity in them. So
yeah, and that is absolutely a team effort. We try to get as many people as we can to help feed all of those social media platforms and be timely. The one nice thing about social media is that spontaneity and being able to capture something when it happens, and the immediacy of it, and the potential for interchange where it's a two-way street. So,
well, it's very, very important. Thanks for your work on that.
Thank you.
Susan, as long as we're on this slide, you mentioned City Side, which goes into the utility bills. Last night, I think we were having a discussion about people who get paperless billing. Are those people who are getting the paperless billing also getting City Side electronically, or are they a missed?
So if they are getting a electronic receipt or something that says that they have paid their bill, they get a link to City Side. We are talking about that as we try to move people into e-billing and away from a paper billing. How are we going to ensure that that connection is there? And City Side is one of those things we have to continue to watch. My next slide talks about our resident satisfaction survey. We continue to watch how these different tools, how people respond to them. So as long as they continue to be effective, we will continue to do them. But things like printed pieces are coming with a higher price tag than they used to. So you have to continually weigh the cost versus the benefit.
Thank you.
So other things that we are doing is outreach and education. We're trying to take advantage more on our website of some of the online surveying tools that it has. In the last month, we've done 3 different surveys online. Again, those are not scientific surveys. Those are self-select surveys. And so they are simply reflective of one data point among many of how people feel at a particular moment who are so inclined to take your survey. We continue to participate 7 times a week on radio stations locally, where I have city staff that are very gracious with their time and will get up early, either with KASI or KHOI, and have conversations. I think as Tim has pointed out, grabbing people's attention is much more difficult these days. So you're having to use many, many tools. Some of the tools maybe don't reach as many people as you'd like, but we're hesitant to give any of them up. And so we continue to look for new ways to do outreach. We are doing a lot of tabling events. We work with Mary Rankin, who is our sustainability coordinator and also the ISU director of sustainability, to find events for us to be part of as part of the campus community. We'll be at Sustainapalooza coming up in February. We'll be at Ames Day at the Capitol this March in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. And of course, you all are familiar with Welcome Fest, which is a great outreach opportunity. We are doing speaking engagements. Climate Action Plan has stoked a lot of interest, and so we've been doing a lot of those speaking engagements. And today I welcomed my first tour back to City Hall, which was pretty awesome. The ISU Women's Club came and visited City Hall, and we actually walked around the building and talked about what business is done here. Have not had a tour in 3 years, so maybe they're coming back. I mentioned our print shop collaboration with Courtney Hinders. She is a great resource for helping make sure that the materials that are produced in the organization are consistent and uniform, and that our brand is always looking its best. And the way that we test a lot of these outreach tools is from our resident satisfaction survey, where we ask people, again, how they're getting information and do they find it helpful or not. And I know that we've kind of talked about many of these, but the council has been busy last year and has a busy year coming. We did the Smart Business Challenge Luncheon in January already, and the mayor graciously hosted that, but we have some events coming up, including our Boards and Commissions Appreciation Luncheon, which you are always part of. Our Bike to Work Week breakfast has been set for May 15th, our bike ride for May 20th. And unfortunately, I learned today that Simon Estes will no longer be coming back to us for bandshell concerts. I think he's officially retired, and thus that leaves Council Night at the Bandshell open for council's choice.
Steve.
So as Brian mentioned, we'll be hosting RAGBRAI on Tuesday, July 25th. And boy, that will lead into a very busy week where we start Rummage Rampage on that Friday, July 28th, which will continue through Saturday, August 5th. But as we all know, Rummage Rampage is an amazing event that really promotes sustainability. And speaking of sustainability, Deb is not here today to give this slide, so I'm going to do it for her. But you'll notice a new page in your budget books. On page 210 is the sustainability section, and it includes funding for sustainability related events like the low carbon strategies that we anticipate in the Climate Action Plan. The Climate Action Plan we anticipate being finished in spring or early summer. And this section also includes budgeting for a full-time sustainability coordinator. And with that, do you have any questions?
Any questions for Susan?
Just was curious, the MediaCom number, that tracking that is for what purpose? Just curiosity.
So
sorry.
that is very funny. I looked at that again today and thought, that really is a statistic from the past. We used to use that as a marker of MediaCom penetration because we're getting franchise fee money, and we're also looking at it as maybe an indicator of internet.
Okay.
And I don't think it tells us really that information anymore. And so I was thinking about that today, that there's probably better statistics I should be using. So thank you.
Okay. Just was curious. Thanks.
If there are no other questions, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
I don't know if any of you saw the note or heard the news that the Ames Tribune is no longer going to be having a bricks and mortar presence here in Ames. I think they just announced that today. So big change of times. And next we have our media production services. Bill?
Hi, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I am, our budget is on page 240 and 241. I will be brief, but as always, I will start with a video of our highlights from the last year. So that's really just a portion of the things we do. And I know Susan mentioned already, but I do have some very talented part-time staff in our office, Graydon, Kazik, and Aaron, that help me put together all of these things. Just to be quick and brief, we're still seeing a continued increase in requests for videos. In fact, we're doing a lot more types of videos than we had done before, both internal and external. Internal videos can include training and other types of events so that staff can watch them later as opposed to making it to scheduled times, which has been helping with shift differentiation and things like that, as well as promos for events and events themselves. We've actually recorded and helped to broadcast lots of different events that are going on, as well as some ongoing series that have been thought up by our office to help bring awareness to things in our city, like Brain Break with Julie Saxton and the Ames Minute, which is a fairly new one that just gives everyone 3 items they should remember for next week, every Friday at 3:00. Social media algorithms for video are definitely still popping up more than just text or even just pictures. And so we get lots of requests to do those videos and make those work. We did receive an IMPA award last year, Award of Achievement, in 2022 for the We Love Ames Water video. And so we're kind of excited about that. And then, as always, we're exploring other areas of communications and media. Some examples are podcasting, as well as we're exploring the video algorithm for social media and thinking about people that don't turn on any sound on their video. And so are we missing out on them because we're talking a lot as opposed to typing a lot? And so we're working on different ways to do that sort of thing. If you look at our budget, the most notable impacts to our budget are really equipment and program changes, our live meeting, recording, storage, and distribution called Granicus recently went up when we had to do an update due to some IT vulnerabilities. And so we had to do an upgrade, which then that definitely it increased the budget, as well as just staff time. The videos that we produce, we try to say yes to everybody, but we can only produce the amount of videos that we have the time to produce. So that's what.
So, Bill, it looks like we had a significant increase, 720% increase in contractual services?
Yes. So that would be our.
Or sorry, I'm looking at the wrong page.
Okay.
It's not you.
Okay, good. I'm glad. We did have an increase, and 720% was
Well, yeah, I'm
throwing me off. but-
actually, it's a very small number, but never mind. You're
Okay.
off the hot seat on
I will stay off the hot seat.
Where could citizens watch the Ames Minute and some of these other videos?
So we post almost all the videos on Facebook. Instagram, it all depends on the length of time of the video. So longer videos will not show up on Instagram or on Twitter. But we do try to post across all 3 social medias. And then everything is always live on our YouTube channel, as well as we have a 24/7 live stream of Channel 12 or Ames Television that is on our website.
Other questions for Bill? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to your team for producing these interesting and entertaining videos.
They are great.
Our next presentation will be from Legal Services. Mark?
Good evening. I'm Mark Lambert, City Attorney. You know who I am, but maybe people in the public don't. I can. We got our first slide here. It's just a little bit about what we do. I always like to say our work is almost 100% reactive in nature. We're not like public works or planning where we can set out a goal that we're going to go do this and that. I mean, the legal work comes to us and then we respond to it and deal with it. But our goal is to provide the best legal services possible to the city and the city staff and the council and the manager's office. And we have an open door policy, which means anyone can come in at any time and talk to any of the attorneys, call us on the phone. I probably talk to a department head probably once or twice a day, I have a department head call me with a quick question about something. And so it's, we really try to be responsive and that's kind of in my view, the whole point of having an inside counsel is to be able to, answer questions quickly. And here's our staff. I'm going to brag about my staff a little bit here. And a funny story on this picture. We usually have taken the picture sitting around a table or something. And this year I said, and I really kind of meant it as a joke. I said, let's just do one where it's like, those commercials for CSI or West Wing where they've got the one lead character out front and the rest in the V behind them. But everyone agreed it was the best picture. So we decided to go with it. So on the left is Jill Grimsley, who's administrative assistant, kind of manages the office in consultation with me. And Jill's been with the office for 17 years. Before that, she was the deputy clerk of court. And before that, she was a paralegal with a Nyemaster law firm. She has a total of 38 years in the legal field. Next is Vicki Fielmeyer, one of the 2 assistant city attorneys. Vicki does most of our development work. She's been with the city attorney's office for 6 years. And before that, she was 23 years in private practice where she did a lot of work for developers and real estate matters. Yours truly, and most of you kind of know my resume, but I worked as a lobbyist for a long time. I had amongst my clients over those 16 years as a lobbyist included Polk County, the councils of governments, which are regional planning organizations around the state that assist smaller communities in planning. Also the professional developers of Iowa, which are the economic development professionals, the Dan Colhanes of the world. So I represented all those groups and monitored things at the Capitol for them. I was on the Iowa Utilities Board for 4 years and then administrative law judge for the state for 7 years. I've been with the city of Ames almost 10. I'm about to hit my 10th anniversary, which is pretty exciting. And that'll be 6 of those as city attorney. So next is Jane Chang. Jane's been with us 5 years. Jane worked for the Story County Attorney's Office doing prosecutions, and she does prosecutions for us and does a lot of other things, but she works with the police on a lot of matters. Jane clerked for various judges before that, and then a little known fact about Jane is that before she went to law school, she earned a master's degree in chemistry from Harvard. So. Oh, with Vicki, I forgot to mention that Vicki served 2 years on the State Board of Regents. Little known fact. Next is Andrea Witt, one of our legal secretaries. Andrea's been with us about 1 year and 3 months. She came from the Newbro law firm here in Ames, and before that, she worked for law firms in Sioux City and other places. She has a total of 28 years in the legal field. And last but not least is Sandy Carter. Sandy just joined us about 3 months ago, replaced Becky Ripke, who was with us for a long time, is with the city for over 20 years. And Sandy worked for 17 years in the clerk of court's office down the hall. And she has a paralegal degree from DMAC. So we have a really strong team. I had everyone write down how many years of experience in the legal field they had, and the total for the office is 151 years of experience in working in the legal field. So it's pretty amazing. Oops, too far.
No.
Uh-oh. I don't know how to back up.
Use the back button. There you go.
That's not working.
The up button.
Susan, help me. Thank you.
Oh, no.
One more. There we go. So, we advise the council, staff, boards, and commissions, represent the city in all sorts of matters, draft and review ordinances, review contracts. The city enters into a lot of contracts. And if I had to identify the one thing our office does the most of, it's probably reviewing contracts. We handle some litigation in district court and appellate courts. Often when the city gets sued, of course, we have ICAP, our insurance pool, and they provide the outside attorneys, but I work with those outside attorneys and responding to discovery requests, and everything that's filed always goes through me first before it gets filed. So I work closely with them. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I don't know what I did here.
It's a good thing you're not our media production.
Yeah. I would not be qualified for that job. Funding sources. Yeah, this one. Yeah, there we go. Maybe you should stay here.
City perspective, assistance.
So, general fund, and you see these are the various pie chart showing the various sources of funding for our office. Next slide. And our biggest expense is personal services, which is the staff salaries and benefits, and those 6 people. We do all the work, and it's really, that's really the bulk of our expenses, just paying those salaries. Next is contractual, which is everything from our pro law legal database management software, Westlaw legal research software, and those sort of things. And occasionally we hire outside counsel for expertise on certain matters, and that gets paid out of there too. So, yeah, that's really it for my presentation. We have I should have said we're on pages 250 and 251 of the budget book, and modest 2% increase, and I guess that's it, unless you have any questions for me.
Mark, what is your department's biggest accomplishment this last year?
I'm going to put him on the spot.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but it seems like you
Well,
have had some
I guess I'm having a hard time answering that, because it's like it's just sort of go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing, and I hadn't really stopped and thought about what was the big accomplishment. So
it's okay. We can check back with you.
Okay, I'll come up with an answer to that and send it to you. I will say my personal, what I feel is my own biggest accomplishment at the time here was working on the miracle field, and doing the legal work on that. I mean, that's such a great project, and I love it, and I'm looking forward to bringing my grandsons up to it this spring. So, we just figuring out how we were going to do it, and with the foundation and all that, and I was involved in that whole thing, and so that personally, that's my favorite accomplishment of my time here. So.
Well, we thank your team for their fine work on behalf of the city, and if there are no other questions, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And next up, we have Human Resources. Bethany.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
So I'll be talking about the human resources budget. I have some other folks with me to talk through risk management, health insurance, and health promotion. But I'll start things off by talking about human resources in particular. This is our human resources team. We worked really, really hard, and we went to the Iowa escape room and finished our room in under the 60-minute cap. So no one had to come and get us, and we're very proud of that. Shows we can work, we can do difficult things together. So this is the HR team. I'm very proud of this team, and we've accomplished a lot, not just this last year, but for the last several years. So excellence through people, those are the values for our organization. This is why we do what we do. And so the 2 goals of excellence through people are exceptional service at the best price and to provide an enjoyable and stimulating work environment. HR is all about both of those things. So something that we've been able to do this year is to have a renewed focus on some of our core functions. The last few years, it's been all COVID. It's all we could think about. COVID policies, COVID administration, contact tracing, all of those things. It's all we could think about. And so now we get to focus on recruitments again. Recruitments are a lot of what we can think about. We've been able to think more about our health insurance programming, our health and wellness programming in a way that we haven't been able to think about it in the last few years. So we're really thankful for those opportunities. We're also sort of challenged on the recruitment side of things because we are no different than any of our counterparts across the state and across the nation, where the number of applicants have gone down and the number of recruitments have gone up. So in the last year, we launched 241 recruitments. We had 2,939 applications that we received. That's a lot, but it's less than the previous year. We were able to hire 188 people from the outside for full and part-time positions. And we got to promote 41 people from within the organization, which is really, really exciting. That's more than we've been able to promote in previous years. So we're really excited about the internal development that's happening in our organization. Another thing that we're really excited about is employee training. So this is another area that we haven't been able to have as much dedicated time because of our COVID obligations. But we're thankful we're doing different things now. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is to purchase some software that will allow for online registration and sort of that classroom and records management piece all in one place. So that's really exciting. And it also allows us to organize our classes by ETP value. And so employees and their supervisors can have a more strategic approach to training opportunities for employees and within the organization. So you can decide, I need to focus more on customer service, and then there will be some training opportunities specifically designed for that purpose. And so we're really excited. We just launched this, and that's a really exciting thing that we get to do moving forward. Then we will move into the risk management discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, good evening. My name is Bill Walton, and I'll be going over the risk management portion of your budget. It's pages 274 and 275 in your budget book. Excuse me. Starting with our liability insurance program, we purchase insurance through the Iowa Community Assurance Pool. We've been with them for more than 15 years. As in any other insurance, we're expecting an increase this year. A couple of years ago, they stopped issuing the contribution credit, and I expect that that will continue this year. We won't see that. As in the years past, I unfortunately have to report that commercial property insurance is continuing to rise. This year should not be an exception. We're expecting probably a 10% increase in property values and then an associated 10% increase in rate to go along with that. One of the things that we put in the budget this year, though, is money for property assessments. Property appraisals. We have not had property appraisals done since 2011. We want to make sure that we're insuring our properties appropriately, but not over insuring them as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Krista.
I might mention, if you look at the increase in risk management, you'll see it's about 14%. And those are what we call the uncontrollables, correct? And right now, I want to emphasize that's all in the general levy. That's what we talked about. They could show up in the trust and agency levy. And that's important because if the state limits us to a certain increase on our general levy, this will certainly impact us if we keep it exactly where it is. So again, it's not that we'd be people playing games. We just don't want to penalize our citizens because we placed it in a certain levy and it could show up in another levy. It's a prime example why we might want to move it.
Did anyone have any other questions for Bill?
Thanks, Bill.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Temp and other council members. My name is Krista Hammer. I'm the HR officer too, who not only partner with the chair of our departments across the organization, HR business partner, but also I manage the insurance for the employees' benefits. So the pages that I'm here to represent are on 276 and 277. We've split out health insurance and health promotions, so they'll be on two separate areas, but I'm on 276 and 277. And typically we like to review with you all the history and what we propose for any of our premium rate increases. Our typical goal is to be anywhere below 10% on an overall from year to year increase. And I think we've accomplished this goal for 23-24, where we are jumping from 7 for this current year up to an 8% increase. So great for that. And we did take some advice from our last presentation for 22-23. Thank you very much. The gray line that you see on our chart here is actually Wellmark's book of business comparison to their rate increases. We don't have 23-24 because they are on a calendar basis where we're on a fiscal year basis. So part of that 8.74% is starting this calendar year of 2023. So that'll increase will be a part of our next fiscal year. And then I should have more date for when we get into 2024. Okay. Then going into the meat and potatoes of where our money is going to in our health expenditures, there is a piece of the pie in that yellow section with a 22% attached to it that I will talk about in a minute. But you can tell that the majority of our expenditures go into our medical claims. And that's at the 58% that you see there represented. And that is actually a decrease from this current year's budget that we approved last year, which was at 62% of the whole expenditure piece. We'll talk about pharmacy claims, which is at yellow 22% in a minute. And then the other medical or insurance claims that you see is dental, which is remaining at 4% again for our proposal for this next fiscal year. The reason I did take out that 22% for pharmacy claims is that we do realize that that is a large increase. And it is increased from 19% of this current budget year that we're in for 22-23. And we are actually going out for an RFP coming up shortly to see if there is any other potential savings that we can implement starting July 1 of 23. So we are looking at a potential of carving out our pharmacy benefit manager to see if there's any potential savings, or we could potentially stay with our current vendor. It's just however the proposals turn out is where we're going to go with our goal to be financial or fiscally responsible. And I want to mention too that you'll notice in my pages that there is quite a significant increase also on excess insurance, even though it's 9%. If you want to go back to this slide, it's 9% of the total expenditures, which is a little higher from this current fiscal year. It is a large increase overall, I believe, if I remember, 46% about. And we are also going to be doing an RFP to see if there's some competitors out there that we might be able to find some savings as well. But right now we're budgeting for that total increase on excess insurance, which covers high dollar claims. For individuals, it's anything over $125,000. And then for overall health claims, it's anything over 120%. And I will hand it over to my co-partner, Casey.
Can I just ask if anyone has a question?
Yeah, just real quick, man, just year after year, I'm just amazed at how the city of Ames keeps its health insurance self-insure, and I just think this is an amazing, I don't know, Corey, if you saw this, and Pella, or if you guys use outside insurance, but this is just an amazing story that I've never lost my fascination with. I did have one question, Steve, before we change channels. You mentioned looking at doing an RFP on some of these insurance pieces. Do we have a schedule where every 2 or 3 years we do an RFP on some of the other insurances, just so we just don't get into that same track?
I think Bill will tell you it's a balancing act. You want to turn over, but there's something about staying with a company through the good times and the bad times. So if you always leave them after 2 years to try to get a better deal, it could hurt you in the long run. So, but the point is, we have a general philosophy. We want to continue to look at the market and see if we can improve ourselves. But if we've got a good, solid contract this year, we're not going to go out next year right away. We want that company to stay with us and be loyal during the bad times too.
Yeah, maybe we could do this afterwards, but could you clarify, for the other contracts we do, we sort of have to do RFPs. So what gives us the flexibility in the insurance to say, we like this company and we're going to stay with them long-term?
Well, maybe you're trying to differentiate between capital improvements and construction contracts versus just a service provided. Is that what you're asking?
Well, just in many.
We do have a in our purchasing policy, we have certain guidelines, but we can stick with long-term relationships in terms of insurance carriers and things like that, according to your own policies.
So I apologize.
Yeah, you'll see that with our auditor. Our auditor, we stay together. We've probably had for a number of years. I know exactly that there's a balance there. Again, you don't want to stay with them too long. You want to switch over, but you want to stick with them for a period of time because it takes time for them to learn our whole operation and things like that. So I don't think we have a hard and fast rule that every 3 years we have to go out and take proposals. We'll rely on Corey, let's say, for the audit, and Bill for a lot of the insurance, or Krista to tell us whether the market's there. We think we could save substantial funds for our customer. We'll certainly make that move. But you don't want to bid it out every year just to get a cheaper price for that year.
So just to land the plane on this, there is some kind of carve out with insurance. In other words, we're not obligated to do an RFP periodically.
Every year, no.
Steve, if I may.
Sure.
We utilize, yeah, wait, thank you.
Sorry.
We utilize.
Well, come up here.
For the purchasing of insurance. So we utilize brokers for the purchasing of insurance, for the liability and the property insurance. And we have contracts with them that do go back out for RFP, but we have them take the insurance to market every couple of years just to make sure that we are getting the best deal that we can possibly get.
Okay, thanks. I'm not sure I've ever had that explained. Thank you very
But
much.
it's not a hard and fast, like every 3 years. That's what you're asking.
Okay.
Did anyone have any other questions for Krista? If not, then we'll move on to health promotion with Casey.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm a new face here to you. My name is Casey Schumann. I'm the new health promotion coordinator this year. And as you might have seen on Krista's last slides, the entire health promotion fund comes out of the health insurance fund. And as you can see from this image, we try to provide a variety of programs that cater to all areas of well-being. We also try to have a strong focus on creating a work environment that supports healthy choices and healthy behaviors. The City of Ames workforce is not limited to one location. As you know, we have buildings all over the city. And so a lot of our health promotion programs go out to the work sites, and some of those include health screenings, which came back after a 2-year break due to the pandemic. We brought those back this year. We screened 158 employees and 13 spouses or adult dependents. And we were able to save a really big chunk of change by using a new vendor this year. We saved about $16,700 by using Iowa State University's Department of Kinesiology this year. So that was really exciting. Another example of programming that goes out to work sites are the on-site vaccine clinics. We did flu shots and COVID-19 boosters together this year. Now that COVID shots are seeming to become a regular thing. And
we gave 408 flu vaccinations and 244 COVID-19 boosters this year. Costs came down just a little bit. The flu shots were 32 apiece rather than 35 apiece as expected. And the COVID-19 boosters were also 32 apiece. They were expected to be about $40 apiece. So those came down a little bit, which is nice. Overall, employee health promotion programming is up this year compared to the last 2 years, now that the pandemic is a little bit less of a concern for people. So we'll likely see a little bit more spending in the next couple of years because we'll be able to spend money on programming instead of just focusing on COVID all the time. We've had 319 unique employees participate in any one program so far this year, which is about 50% of our benefits eligible population, which is great. This time last year, we were about at 40% and 35% participation the year prior. So something new that we did this year was we obtained a mental health first aid instructor certification for myself. We saw a need for more instructors within the city. We do have Julie Saxton, but she is very, very busy, as you all know. And so we saw that need, and so we decided to fill it. Mental health has been an increasingly popular topic over the last couple of years, and employees are really interested in being trained more in mental health. And so that's why we decided to do that. It was previously offered as just a power hour to formal leaders, and now we are expanding it to all city employees at this point.
Is that
Yep.
full-time as well as part-time?
I'm sorry.
Is it that?
Oh, employees. Yes, anybody.
So part-time as well?
Yes, it will be offered as an employee development center class, and so those are open to all employees.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. And then finally, we are in the process for an RFP for a new wellness portal vendor, and that's where employees log on to track their health-related progress. We're just wanting to see what else is out there. We've been with our current vendor for about 4 years now. They're Optimum Health Solutions out of Illinois, and we may end up sticking with them, or we may not. We just want to see what else is out there for us. The largest chunk of the health promotion budget is outside professional services, and that includes those vaccines that I talked about. It includes health coaching, the wellness portal, and nutrition programming for employees. The next largest chunk is other services, and that includes our Healthy for Life program incentive payments. The Healthy for Life program is a reward for employees who complete certain healthy behaviors. And then this is followed by personal services for myself and my health promotion intern. And then finally, fitness subsidies for employees and any other family members who are on city insurance. And that is remaining at a stable level of participation compared to the last few years. So that's good that employees are continuing to participate in that. This requested budget reflects continuation of all of our existing wellness programming, annual all employee and spouse and adult dependent health screenings, a possible increase in the cost of flu vaccination, and the possible continuation of an annual COVID-19 booster. We just don't know yet if that is going to end up being an annual vaccination for everybody or not, like the flu shot. Right now, it is looking like it will be, but we'll see what happens.
So do we know whether the Healthy for Life incentive is paying off in other ways? Are we seeing reduced claims for insurance or other aspects of our HR?
So that's a tricky question to answer because we might actually see more dollars spent in claims, because the idea behind a wellness program is that we catch them early. So we might see more dollars spent, but hopefully over time you see less large expenses. So the idea is that maybe we would hit our stop loss less frequently. So more office visits, less hospitalizations, things like that. And so it's not necessarily a reduction in overall claims. Hopefully in the long run, it's a reduction in those large claims and the overall spend for our health insurance programs. But the cost of healthcare increases year over year. So it's just tricky to answer the question because we might not see this huge drop off just because of healthcare inflation anyway.
I think you did a great job answering the question, Bethany.
And it contributes to retention. I have no doubt that what you're doing contributes to retention. And there's a great cost savings in the retention that we have. So, yeah, great question, good answer. Yeah.
Did anyone else have additional questions for Casey or Bethany?
I had a question for Bethany, and it's back on 253. And I just wondered about, you do track percentage of racially diverse and female applicants and keep setting, new bars. I wondered then, of those applicants, do you also know how many were hired that are in those two categories of those 138 or however?
So we would know that. We would know that based on self-identification in our hiring process. We just haven't reported on it for this document, but we would know that, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. If at some point we can
Sure.
know that, and that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, HR team. We appreciate your work.
Good job.
And I see that the mayor has returned, so I'll hand the gavel, the metaphorical gavel, back to him since he never gave up the gavel. We are at Community Development Program.
Okay, thank you.
Here was put transfers in there. Is that new? Transfers. Is that always in there?
It's been the last few years because it's a requirement.
That's good. I never noticed that. Be like this.
No. If we don't budget, we can't do it. I should have just,
Hmm?
if we don't budget transfers, we can't do that.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just don't remember this format.
Mayor's back this time.
Fun stuff.
Big finale.
Yet to be seen, actually.
Yet to be seen. You're right. Here it comes. So we're on pages 204 through 207 for planning.
It's not just Mark.
Only I would make it work.
Oh.
I've come to the conclusion this is not user failure. It is something with the technology.
Yeah.
It's user value.
Want
to sit here?
I don't want to fail with you.
He'd be even better.
Wait, I'll turn on my.
I was going to say, turn on.
That was a nice picture of you in the spinning class.
All right.
That was?
This is inspiring.
So for planning services, we do think of our activities within kind of two divisions. We staff across the board with all 5 of our planners doing all of the activities throughout the year. So I don't have assigned current planning staff and assigned long-range planning staff. That helps me be flexible based on the workload of what's in front of us. But we do think of current planning as your development projects that you see us here for, as well as the customer service aspect we do day to day with customers that call in with questions about their property. Long range planning and policy issues are really those projects that council puts in front of us, whether they're comprehensive plan issues, whether they're studies, other kinds of zoning activities. And then we have a administrative services division, which has been around now for probably almost 8 years, which is a shared support staff division between fire, public works, and planning. We support the 3 boards: Planning and Zoning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment, and HPC. You're very familiar with what a lot of these boards do for us and how we staff those, so we don't need to dwell on that. I use this slide every year just to kind of give you a sense of what I kind of feel generally. This is our proportion of time. It's different every year, but this is really how I see kind of your general commitment of time to our staff for our 5 planners. So I do like to kind of touch on what's been happening from a development perspective. You don't really get development reports. You see us here for individual projects, and then you might not ever see that project again and come before you after you've approved it. But between inspections and planning, we kind of track the permits that are issued and the different permits that we get approved. So one thing we do look at is just the single family home production across the city. So last year we started to see interest rates rise, and now along with construction cost increases. So that was not an optimal environment for single family homes. We did see some subdivisions choose not to proceed. So in our budget metrics, we didn't report a significant number of new lots created in the city. This slide's telling you just on existing lots, we only had 69 homes have single family permits issued last year in the city, then which was down about 25% from our 5-year average. And it was a little bit lower. I'm sorry, it's 25% from the previous year, but our 5-year average has been down at 81. And that's kind of impacted by last year and the COVID year. So both of those numbers were in the 60s. Otherwise, they were in the higher 80s. But previously, before the last 5 years, they were over 100 units a year being produced. So you can kind of see in the last 5 to 7 years, we've been kind of consolidating the production of single family homes into less and less. Not exactly sure why. Costs have increased. But in the last 7 years, you probably can't pick at one issue that says why that would go down.
But it's helpful to note communities like Huxley are increasing their number of housing permits. I mean, this is part of the contribution for the housing cost being so high in Ames is we're just not building houses.
On the flip side of the fact that there's fewer homes, it is a pretty diverse market right now. So in the last 3 years last 2 years, we've had a lot of different choices. It used to be very standard, single family detached, basically quarter-acre lot, average, some attached single family homes mixed in. And then last year and the year before, we've started now to see a few more townhome projects. We've seen the more zero lot line or patio home thing with the Damani product, still standard single family homes being built. And we see a number of those same kinds of products coming back next year. So even though the number's not increasing, the choice is a little bit different than maybe it was over the past 10 years. So I think that's still a positive that you're getting a little different. They're not necessarily more affordable, but they are definitely a different choice in the market. Apartments are the really kind of interesting one, because when I first got here, that was the push, just constant production of apartments. We peaked in 2018 with that supply coming online. We've definitely balanced out in terms of vacancy and occupancy rates. Pretty healthy market, in my opinion, from what I've heard from developers and occupancy levels. We really haven't built any more, though, since 2018. So that's going to be something that you'll probably start to see questions about in upcoming years. It doesn't really affect our budget necessarily, but it is something that's going to be coming up, is where is that next availability of apartment and multifamily housing going to be? So just to give you a sense where these projects, again, they come to you, you probably don't see them for 2 years. So this is kind of really what's active in the market, and then things that you have approved that I believe will move into production here in the next year in 2023. So you can see there's quite a variety up there. That's where I said we have a lot of different choices coming online. The Bluffs at Nankbar has multiple products. Ansley is a unique project of single family. North Sunset Ridge is pretty much your standard default single family homes. And then Baker Subdivision, getting the affordable and market rate lots out there for some housing to be built, along with our multifamily affordable project that we hope comes through here this spring as well. And the Link is really our only apartment project when you think about it. The Link is a lot of things, so we really are hoping that comes through with us for the development agreements coming forward, but a number of plans still have to be done. A lot of details left in that project before you see a shovel turn over some dirt. But again, a lot of things going into that Link project that'll be good for the community.
How are you defining active on that map, Kelly?
Those have had houses produced in them in 2022 or in 2022, a house was constructed in those developments. 2023 are projects that have not yet had a house built in them. And then the other side, in our metrics and our budget page, we talk about application types and everything. And commercial is a big driver for our site plans. And what's interesting here is that our commercial output is probably very similar, but it's really focused a lot on employment and industrial uses. So we've seen quite a few projects kind of just maintain kind of that purpose-built nature. We aren't seeing necessarily speculative development, but we are seeing a lot of people come to the Ames market that have a reason they want to be here and taking on pretty substantial projects. This Dayton small lot subdivision, which we did this last summer through a development agreement to do a TIF rebate. It's only 10 lots. 4 of those are already likely to be built on. So that project ended up not being so speculative as we went through the process, as again, very little land was available. So once that became a real site, a number of people gravitated to that, and we should see some investment there this summer. The other one is Prairie View. The first project would be the Wiffles Hybrids project. They bought a lot of land there for a multi-year development project. First phase is really a warehouse distribution facility, so it's not the the most exciting thing that you can have, but it's the start of a long-term plan for them. And that's again coming this year. Last year, we increased application fees by 10%. We hadn't increased fees in over 7 years. So that was a token increase last year because on our revenue side, we're around $20,000 a year. So we're very heavily general fund funded as a department. Fees do not really recapture anything for us. Just from the commercial side, that's a little bit more diverse, but these are kind of areas where you see lots or projects that are available for development in the city. Kind of a lot of different things are out there potentially as projects in the next year. So from the policy planning, I know you're all very well aware of the Ames Urban Fringe Plan. Unfortunately, we're still working on that. That was supposed to be concluded and to move into some other priorities for the council. We're still waiting for feedback from the county since our January meeting. They have not taken our response to that yet. So I won't have any feedback until probably March on where the Fringe Plan stands with our current partners between Gilbert and Story County. Other significant things that have taken a lot of effort from multiple staff people is our front yard and driveway permit requirements. You reviewed that this summer to talk about front yard parking, and we've now reorganized between inspections, public works, and planning how we do that process. You have an ordinance plan for February 28th to make those final zoning code adjustments. Pretty time consuming process and involved for a lot of staff here. You have a number of priorities through it for us in our work program. The main two priorities here for this spring are about infill housing and affordable housing strategies. And those will be kind of two different workshops that will come back to you and talk about design issues and possibilities for procedures and regulations related to how to support infill housing and accessory dwelling units. And then affordable housing has a number of aspects beyond just our community development block grant and our home funds, just kind of what's our philosophy about where and how do we want to support affordable housing that may not be directly funded by us as we are in the Baker subdivision. Plan 2040 has been on the books for just over a year. There's a number of implementation measures. We're working through those with you as you identify the priorities. And we're not reviewing the CIP, but the CIP does have infrastructure in it that is 100% based on meeting the needs for those priority growth areas in the comp plan. Some of the other things we're continuing to work on, as you're aware, the link, the mixed use development there. The TIF subdivision is essentially done at this point. We do have a typo in there. One thing that's not in our budget this year is we're not carrying any money forward to do outside consultant assistance. So we don't see in our budget any particular project that would need a third-party consultant involved. So that is no longer in our budget. That's been put back into the balance. You had seen that in our budget for a number of years. But at this point, we're just assuming city staff can meet the needs of the projects that council has for us. So our last slide is administrative services. Again, our support division. We have 5 people that work in that, again, supporting fire, public works, and planning. Really, the key thing here is that ZBA was transferred from city clerk, as Renee said. Those responsibilities for support staff are brought here. So from the budget, you'll see there's an increase in administrative services costs. Planning has a little bit higher overtime budget, but those are really offset by things that would have been in the city manager's or the city clerk's budget previously. So for the city, it's no real net change, but in our budget, it shows as an increase of cost of service because we moved those over. And I think it's definitely been a more effective way to manage that board, just because the planners are the ones doing the work and it's our staff that we're working with on a day-to-day basis. So any questions about planning or administrative services?
So that's where the 720%
Oh,
increase
yep.
comes from. So which is that the ZBA related?
Which page was that one on?
It's on 242. It's contractual. And, before anyone
There you go.
panics, $4,100 is not a huge amount of money. So 720% increase, but
I believe it's training. It's training. You guys have a highlight about it.
Yeah, so in that particular one, it is training on the
On
budget
InterGov.
highlights. So we did budget for,
The fourth bullet down.
oh, how did I miss that? Okay.
Yep.
That's what?
so there's 2 major costs for training. There's a conference for InterGov, which is our permit software and our online portal submittal. Our staff has to spend a lot of time working in the background to make that thing stay operational. So we have a position or a conference for that. And then one of our staff members, our new support services leader, we budgeted for her to go to Leadership Ames next year. So that's a different cost in the training. So normally there's not a high training budget for admin. So that's why the percentage is so high.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for your time.
Housing?
Yep.
Housing? Vanessa here today? She's here.
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
I got it. Good evening, everyone. I understand that I only have like 5 or 7 minutes, and I'm the last thing between you and some ice cream or a rerun of Chop. So, and Steven's giving me the sign that says, hurry up. Okay, I got it. So, as you know, we have several programs under the housing program, and we are there to address the ways to increase the availability and affordability of housing and explore how we can do all types of housing choices. I'm going to talk really fast. A big program, one of our programs is our countywide program, and this is really our fallback program for when we do very small things or we don't have enough federal dollars or can't spend federal dollars to launch programs. And so this is our fallback program until we are in a position where we can draw down any of our federal grants.
Follow-up stuff.
And also for our Community Development Block Grant Program, that is the heart of our program. It's on page 214. And that's where we're an entitlement community. And we're working, this year is our 18th allocation, and we just got over $500,000 and plus our rollover dollars from the previous years. We spent the last couple of years using the majority of our CDBG program on the infrastructure at the Baker subdivision that we finished last summer. So some of the activities that we're doing for 2023 is a slum and blight removal, and I just want you to know there's a lot of slum and blight out there. And so we have been working closely with the inspections department to identify these abandoned, blighted properties and to restore some of these vital neighborhoods and remove these hazard properties from those neighborhoods. And we have several on our list for this year, so that we're just kind of getting started on that. And we did work closely with HUD to make sure that we could concentrate on that this year, that it doesn't exceed our 70% of where our CDBG fund should be spent on low and moderate income. We've been 100% over the years, and so we're good at spending the 30% of our 70% allocation.
Vanessa, are we finding that the owners of these slum and blight properties are willing to sell? I think in the past, we've had some challenges getting people to actually give up their properties to us.
Yes and no. Lately, when I come knocking and say, hey, I hear you have some concerns with your property with inspections, they are like relieved that we're there to help them. And then there are some that we're dealing with that have a lot of mental challenges. And so that's been hard to work with because they own the property, but they don't have the mental capacity to work with us on doing that. And so that's been a challenge on one particular one we'd like to work with. But mostly when I go knock on the door and I say, I have the opportunity to take this property off your hands, and it's been very positive, and that's been very good. I'm working on right now one that's really another one that really needs to be addressed. So, yes. Also, what we put in the program for this coming year was to implement a single-family housing rehab improvement program to do an installation of a pocket park in the Baker subdivision, and then prepare for the construction of affordable single-family along South Wilmouth site for qualified first-time home buyers, and then having a market to plan this market rate lots. And then hopefully as we develop the properties on the south side of Wilmouth, we'll be implementing our down payment and closing cost assistance program. And what we talked about last year is looking at selling those first several lots to Habitat for Humanity So we're in the process of working out that agreement that will be coming to you at the end of this month. Also, we have not received our 23-24 allocation yet, so our budget is based on our current allocation. I'm hoping that we'll be hearing that soon, and so then we'll be starting on working on our action plan and going back out for public comments, feedback on how we should utilize the program, and then bringing those suggestions to council. And then that plan is due to HUD by March 17th of 2023. May 17th, excuse me. Our next program is our home investment program. This is just our 5th allocation of receiving home funds. And this current year, we received just over $400,000. And a certain percent of that is for administrative dollars, and the rest is for program funds. And we're rolling over about $1 million because we've been, targeting that money for the Baker subdivision. And so now we're looking at trying to utilize that. And that also comes with a local match of 25%. And we utilize our GO bonds when we're doing the Baker subdivision infrastructure improvement. So we kind of have some local match dollars in the pot. And then also we have to set aside 15% of those dollars for certified CHODO development organizations when we're at the point of getting ready to create one of those organizations. So right now we're using those funds because this year the money has not been allocated yet. And then so we'll be seeking our annual action plan. But the project that we're doing this year, we've gone out again, as you know, for an RFP. And we are hoping to be bringing that information to you at this meeting at the end of the month, the 28th, about moving forward with that project. And we set aside $1 million for that program, all of which is basically all of our home money until we get the allocation for 23-24. So we're third time's a charm, right? Right. Okay, that's good.
Is it only the third time? It feels like it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So like I'm saying here, we're soliciting for a tax credit developer. Applications are due to IFA in April 23rd, and that's why we're really pushing the process through so that we can make that April application deadline. Also, we have a lot of CARES money and American Rescue money. So, we have been fortunate to be an entitlement community to receive all of the CARES funds that are coming through the federal government down to the local entitlements here in Iowa. And our first CARES program was our own program where we received over $700,000, and we used that to implement a mortgage, rent, and utility assistance program to help people with rent, utilities, and mortgage for up to 6 months. We can say we've helped over 169 households to date, and the largest that money was spent for rent, which is just over $400,000. We have really spent the last 80% of the funds. And so that program is basically in because the 80% funds had to be spent by June of this year. And the application for this program has basically come to a stop. So we're moving on with our other CARES programs. And then our second CARES program is where we received just over $600,000 from the Iowa Economic Development agencies, and we set aside that money to help 2 daycare assistants and 1 nonprofits with food delivery. So we are purchasing a van and remodeling a room at ACPC to create infant space that's much needed in the community, and also at UCC where we wanted to upgrade their mechanical systems and kitchen for their daycare facilities. Now I'm a little this program is running a little bit behind, and we have a deadline of May to spend 80% of that $600,000. And so we've really been trying to get that out of the door so that we can be successful in helping these agencies take advantage of this one-time funding from the state. And then, of course, we have our last program, which is our home American Rescue program, which is called Home Art. And we just received that this past year, just over $1.2 million, of which 15% can be used for program administration. And then we have to go back and revise our 2021-22 annual action plan to include this money, even though we've closed out that plan. That is just a requirement of HUD. And then the deadline for expenditure of these funds is September of 2030. And as you might be aware of, we just completed our public forums with our stakeholders and our public in January. We also gathered surveys from both stakeholders and providers. And part of creating this plan, we have to also have a 15-day comment period and submit the plan to HUD by March 31st. So we recently just brought to council what we decided we wanted to focus on, which was going to be a non-congregate shelter and looking to help the qualifying populations of homeless, those fleeing domestic violence, those being stalked, and those kind of activities where we're looking to provide more shelter for those types of qualifying populations under this particular program. And so soon we'll be bringing that action plan to to the council for their approval after it ends the 15-day comment period starting sometime next month. And so we are looking at putting that on the agenda for the last meeting in March, so it can be submitted to HUD by March 31st. I did find out today that some of the entitlements in Iowa have had their plan rejected several times by HUD. So again, I'm trying to shoot for getting it done right the first time, but we'll see what happens. So that kind of talks about all of the programs that we're doing with our home CDBG and our COVID programs. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
Okay. We always like to end our program with thanking our staff. And, you know, with the planning and housing staff, we always try to do something really creative and make it fun. So first of all, I want to introduce Deb Emery. She's always been there. She started with me with COVID, helping me get a lot of things done. So she's there to help get the job done so that that is number one top priority for her, that she's cleared off her desk and waiting for the next set of work plans to be done, which is coming up very soon. She doesn't really get a chance to get a breather. And I really appreciate her commitment to come and work and to help me do it because she can hit the ground running. She used to be work for me under the Section 8 program. So she knows how to do calculations and understand the rules and regs and how to make sure that we have clean audits. So I appreciate her support for the housing division. And then also we have the planning staff. And this year they're tuning up their ride, and it may take a while because, you know, they're working on it, but they finally delivered it to planning services with style and with a smile. So they are on the road and ready to go to hit this year with planning services. And they had a good time on this one. I almost had to stop them from driving it out the door. But anyway, we can't do anything without our planning and housing staff. And so we just want to give them kudos and thank them for all the work that they do for our department and for the city and for the citizens. And that's all I have.
I just had one question on page 214 and 215. Under the funding sources for CDBG, it shows 649, 187. And then I was just curious that doesn't jive with the 569, 187. Is there $80,000 more coming in or being carried over? I was just curious about that.
Where's the?
So on page 214, under your manager recommendation, funding sources, CDBG, it says 649, 187.
Is administration doing? All right, comparing to what number?
And then on bullet number 2 on page 215, it says that the allocation of 569,187 is projected for 23, 24. So I was just curious if,
I think there's some program income that's expected. I'm flipping back to look at the page for the fund because the only thing that's showing there is how we're funding the 649 is the total expenses for that year.
Oh, that's for the CDBG. And we don't always know what our program income is. We projected 50,000 for program income.
Right. So if you look on page 300, which is the fund for that, there's $80,000 that Vanessa's anticipating from the sale of homes. So she has 569,187 coming in from the CDGB program and then 80,000 in program income that's expected. And those two pots of money fund what she's going to have for expenditures. That is unusual. I think in a normal year, when we think we're going to have a sale of homes, we have it in the current year. But I think this is an unusual one where Vanessa knows it's probably going to be in 23, 24.
And one of the reasons is because, we have our timeliness test in May. And so we try not to get too much program income in before that test because you have to spend program income first, which doesn't count towards your timeliness test. And so we try to be careful about when we project that's going to come in.
okay, thank you.
Good job, Vanessa. Right on time.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's see. Anything else? No, we don't.
That's it.
We do have some wrap-up information we're going to hand out to you to remind you what you're going to be doing on Tuesday. So you have some homework. Remember to review some of the recommendations.
Thank you.
So obviously, we're going to work through the CIP. Again, if you're going to make a drastic change in the CIP, I hope you'll check with us before that because we'll have to scramble to see where we're going to find money and things like that. And same thing with the budget too. If you want to do something, if you get us a little word beforehand, what you're contemplating, we can be prepared for that. I'm not recommending you make any changes or encouraging it, but just in case you do, we need to talk to you before that, before Tuesday. And then, so that will deal with the adjusted budget. And then we're going to go through the CODA asset, public art, outside funding requests. And also you have some other requests that aren't on the list. It's up to you. Then you will approve the budget. Now, I talked to Corey and Nancy. We got a little change in plans from what we normally do because of the uncertainty at the state level. So you want to explain what our strategy may be?
Sure. So we've had an opportunity to review some of the bills that are coming through the state legislature, and there's a variety of impacts theoretically in future years. And so in order to make sure that we kind of see the progress of those bills and potentially the impact that adopting a current budget may have on future budgets, we'd like to delay the process of setting the max levy hearing, holding the max levy hearing, and then ultimately approving the budget. Typically, we'd be done by the end of March. I think we were scheduled for the first meeting in March for that. Not sure that there's any rush to get that completed. I think at this point, we were considering an amended schedule for the end of April. There's a bill amending the residential rollback that extends the budget period through April. So I think we'd like to utilize that time to evaluate strategies for the current budget and any potential impact that it may have in the upcoming year. So I don't think it delays really any of the decision making. Really, the big impact is how we utilize our levy rates and in what way we utilize the dollars coming from some of those levy rates. I think that's where we've landed today after a lot of discussion. So hopefully there's probably a lot of questions on that. We had some still too, but I think it's probably a good idea to just hold off at this point.
We would like you to make final decisions on the budget, even though we're not going to publish it, because we want to isolate, get final decisions for you and what you're going to take out to the public. So think about that.
And I think the reason for that is the bills currently under consideration don't have an impact on the upcoming fiscal year. It would be the following fiscal year. So FY 24-25. There's some mechanics as it relates to levy rates and collections that rely on a budget that we're considering approving. And so we want to make sure that we have an appropriate strategy for the city based on some of the legislation that occurs.
One question I have is, part of me says that if we're in a tight fiscal period, that should cause us to have to pause or be cautious about adding new categories of spending. But there may be some of those new categories that we would say, no, we still want to prioritize them. Then that would cause us to have to rethink other programming. So can you give us some direction on that piece, any of you?
Well, I think one of the things that we would be doing in April is adopting a budget that goes into effect in July. So if there were material changes in upcoming fiscal years in a budget we've just adopted, we certainly would bring back, at least my perspective, we'd bring back a strategy for limiting some of the expenses or increasing revenues to minimize any impact of the legislation. The nice thing about the budgeting process from our standpoint is we still have some time before the budget is actually implemented. So if we saw a significant increase in revenues of some source, nothing would prevent us from coming back to the city council and re-reviewing the budget. Certainly our certification process would be complete, but we would still have the option to review programs or divisions of budgets if we theoretically want to make modifications.
I'm not so concerned. I know we've got the time. I'm trying to figure out the process. So we take climate as an example. So we have budgeted, Steve, how much?
$500,000.
Okay. And then we're adding a new staff person, new FTE. So one strategy would be to say, let's hold off on that. We're looking at 1.2 million of shortfall. But if we say as a council, no, we really value that, that's represents our priorities. I know we've got the time. My question is on the process. How do we think about the rest of this if we have those cuts?
Well, first we have to find out what the rules are going to be. That's the frustrating part. So we'll know, is those cuts going to be required this year or the year after? Because if it's the year after, we have a lot of time to work with council on those kind of things. We're hopeful that's going to be the case, but that's why we got to be vigilant the next couple of weeks to see if something changes. We'll have to call us back together, see if we have to do something this year. I want you to, it's a little bit different though. We can't have a position in the budget and just say we won't fill it. That's not what we have to do. We have to remove it from the budget so there's no funds being appropriated for it even.
Right.
So it's a more drastic move if you have to do that. It's not like you say, just don't fill it, Steve, we'll have savings. That's not what the limits are going to be from the state. It's how much you have budgeted for to collect revenue from.
So there's really three main bills right now. One is Senate File 181, which passed out of Ways and Means House Committee last night, headed to the floor. If I were a betting man, I would bet that's going to pass. That's going to push our rollback from 56.49 to 54 something or other.
So that's the one that passed unanimously in the Senate.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's the loss of
That's the one that's-
$775,000. But we showed you that second page. If we're able to increase our levy, we will connect the same amount. The same amount will be collected. We're not collecting any more. It's just we will be able to accomplish that loss in revenue.
So it's a choice. If we want to go ahead, we have not historically seen that much of a levy jump in years past. We have the ability to do it because there's enough margin above to do it, but that becomes a conscious choice. And then the other two bills, the Senate Study File 1124 and 1125, your interpretation is those would not affect FY 23-24. It'd be 24, 25 would be the first time if they do go through. Is that correct?
If they do go through it, and later on, there would be some additional effects in future years as well.
Right. And then so councils be voting on the maximum amount that they would want to not levy, but spend next Tuesday night. They can always spend less, right?
Right. That's right. And I think the one thing that we would say is there's really no need to push forward to do that at this point if we have allotted time. There's
to pass on the maximum levy.
Yeah. The process is that you set the public hearing for the max levy, you hold the max levy, set the public hearing for the actual budget, and then approve the budget. And if we have an additional month, and we decide there just need to be budget modifications based on, I mean, it's been kind of a whirlwind. If we need to make budget modifications, that would give us the allotted time. I mean, certainly we could come back and re-review some of those things with you, but I think it's good practice probably to move forward and just not go through the formal notice and certification process. If that makes sense.
So council could, if you advise mid-March, that we probably shouldn't spend, I'm making this up, you should spend $300,000 less.
Sure.
They've already moved, they've already approved not to exceed spending this much. It's their prerogative. They can go ahead and reduce it by 300,000. The levy still hasn't been set yet.
Correct. Right.
So, but it's be nice to just have that done,
Yeah.
put a bow on it, and then just wait and see for the final decisions in terms of legislation to determine whether or not you vote on the maximum levy amount, correct?
Yeah, and really the big thing is the certification of taxes and the conveyance to the county of the levy rate and what levies we're utilizing to determine those tax rates. So that's the big piece that no matter what we do in the upcoming year cannot be amended. Once that's certified to the county, that's our collection. So that from my perspective, that's we can make budget amendments, we can modify our revenues expenses through amendments, but we can't collect less or more after we've provided that levy to the county. So does that make sense?
But that'd be devastating to have to cut out. Remember, we're asking for $1.2 million more. And if you lose 700,000 of that revenue, it's a major part of that increase. And given the fact that 8%, remember a lot of those uncontrollables like property insurance and things like that, that means you're going to have some devastating cuts in service levels. And I just hope we don't have to, we're going to bet that we can avoid that by increasing the levy this year to offset that, or next year to offset that. And then we'll know, we'll settle it and find out what the policy is going to be. And we have some months to talk about, have the real dialogue that needs to take place about permanent cuts in other areas. But if something changes, we might have to call you back in session and set those dates. We might have to do something else if we find something's going to hit this year or next year, the 23-24 budget. I apologize, but we have to stay flexible right now. We've never had to do this before.
And so one more thing. So just because we can increase the levy to address the shortfall,
Correct.
I want to test that premise a little bit. Just because we can do that, my question is, does it mean we should do that? So I think this is a harder question. So it's easy for us because we have more margin in our levy rate, but we need to think long-term, and there'll be other councils that may come back and curse us for, in this time period, instead of making hard decisions, we went ahead and continued on with spending when we should have been more fiscally conservative rather than using up our levy rate. I think this is hard.
Well, we have sufficient levy rate. That's where I'm trying to buy time for you.
Right.
If you think it's hard, it's real hard now to cut out $775,000. It's service level cuts.
Right.
So we're trying to buy a year. I mean, I don't overstate it, but adding the 36 cents, we were still a very attractive price. And in essence, we're still collecting, under that proposal, we're still collecting the same $1.2 million. Remember how it shakes out, we'll have to bring those two sheets out. Who pays for it?
Yeah.
It's interesting enough, it kind of lowers the impact on single family residents. Remember that? And spreads the burden to commercial and industrial.
I think that the challenging thing is we're working in a lot of hypotheticals at this point.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's really no, I'd love to give you a great strategy and we know what we're going to do and we know the impact, but you read the bills and then there's different interpretations. And so there's just a lot of things at play. And so it's really hard to come up with a timeline and a strategy for making decisions and implementing policy that you direct without kind of knowing what the real end game is in terms of the legislation.
So we're trying to obtain flexibility by not making that final decision now. Buy us some time. I'm not sure. I can tell you, my colleagues in other cities are just overwhelmed by this. I'm not sure they've even they understand the impact or expressed their concerns to the state legislature yet. They're just trying to get their hands around it. We've got good people like Corey and Nancy that we're trying to understand it, but there are a lot of people, they don't understand it yet. And when they do, there's going to be a lot more dialogue with the state, and we'll see what happens then.
I would say the cities that do understand it are also holding off. So we would not be unusual in terms of kind of hitting pause in terms of following the formal process for adoption.
So when you, what's the time limit that you want from the time that you had the last final hearing and you have to get the budget to the auditor?
Right, working backwards from
So working backwards, I'm just trying to think, when do we need to have, what's the deadline for, because we have to have multiple hearings.
Yeah, I think the final hearing or the final meeting in April would kind of be what we would plan on. I can't remember the dates right now, but I think that's right.
But he's saying working back, when do we have to make the first move?
So working back, we basically need 3 meetings for if there's no special meetings involved. And so it'd be what would that be? The last meeting in March, we would start the process of setting the public hearing.
So March 28th to be the first public hearing.
Yeah.
April 11th to be the second one. And so if you had it on if the last public hearing was on the 25th, you're saying?
It'd be on the 25th, correct?
So only having 3 business days after that's adequate for you to go?
It's all electronically submitted to the
Okay.
Department of Management of the county. I think we have to provide some publication affidavits and stuff like that, but that's nothing that can't be overcome. And I think the county and the state, given the circumstances, are certainly they have been in the past very accommodating when there's been challenges. So
The point is the T should be crossed and I's dotted already, but unless council made some changes based on public input on the 25th. That's the only thing that would happen.
I would urge you not to do that, but yeah.
Right. We don't want people to think they can't come and express.
No, I understand.
And we would
But
bring
they
back,
should know what your recommendation is going to be at least, then they can convince you otherwise.
right, and we would bring back a summary of kind of what's going on at the State House for that decision-making process too. So certainly wouldn't just proceed without taking that into consideration and bringing that
But the
forward.
bummer is though, if we're sort of boxing a corner and we had to make major program changes, we're not going to be able to give the community much in the way of opportunity for feedback. So we're going to make these decisions. They're going to impact programming. And normally we want to have a robust process for getting public input. We're not going to have that.
Correct, right.
Well, that's not on us. That's on the state legislature and what they're forcing us into. So I don't see we have much choice.
But we have a little bit of choice. We can wait till the very last minute to make those budgets, or we can try to give ourselves a little bit of time to get some public input. There's a little bit of margin.
Anything else you want to comment on regarding legislation or?
No, I think we're doing our best to track it and work with some other partner cities. And I think we're doing the best we can to convey the impacts of the proposed legislation to the legislators, and the league's working with us on that as well. So we'll keep kind of taking those things to them and our concerns and maybe some strategies that we would undertake so that state legislators understand what, that kind of puts the city in a position of what we'd be required to do from a financial standpoint.
Okay.
I have an additional question, not related to that, but related to our form here for the final council budget decisions. On the back side, we've got the AEDC outside funding request. And
That's,
I believe that that request was increased to $25,000.
This is not that one. This is just one that they do through the outside funding for Brian's, the council grant program. Every year they ask for 15,000 and we break it out separately because we fund it through hotel motel. instead
this
of
didn't,
local
yeah,
option.
that other 25 didn't come through our normal process. And
Yeah.
Story County Housing Trust has another one. So
Yeah.
you have to look at all the requests you've had.
I thought that that one came in November as part of the regular process.
It's not part of our outside funding request.
Well, I don't know. I'm
I
reading
thought-
it as
I
that.
thought the AEDC just upped their request.
They did.
That
Yeah.
they normally do, so it would be part of this.
Yeah, but it's not part of that. It's just, that's a separate decision you have to make.
I think that
You don't take that off the top of the outside funding request pot.
I think that
It's a separate request.
the 15,000 is the one that Brian gave everyone last Friday. It's the 15,000 on here for their workforce development. I believe the $20,000 increase is part of their annual contract.
That's
where
a
we pay
separate-
the 150,000.
Okay.
Every year.
Got it.
It's
You
in
pay
the operating
150,000.
I thought
budget.
they were increasing this.
That's what I thought too, and I don't
Wait.
think the letters
I know.
were actually clear.
Okay.
So,
Wait, what are you asking? Let's make sure you understand.
I'm good.
no, we're,
I got it.
we're okay.
it's outside of you have a
It's the
separate.
other
It's the
funding,
other.
Yep.
not the
Yes,
workforce development funding.
yes.
Yeah, I had to clarify it with Brian as well. I wasn't sure reading the letter.
Yeah, it was not clear in the letters that we received that that was the case. All right, thank you.
It's 25,000.
All right. There are no dispositions of communication to council tonight, so we'll go to council comments. And Helen, you want to start us off?
Me, sure, yeah. I was just going to encourage everybody to bring a Valentine's box on Tuesday. Yeah, like the shoe boxes
Yeah.
with the what do you call it? Construction
I
paper.
vote aye.
Okay, good.
Is that a requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that work? Did that work?
Does that mean everyone in the audience has to bring one too? Or?
Whoever brings one, I'll bring extra
Me too.
treats.
Yep.
Is that in the budget? That's just kidding. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
Rachel?
Nothing for me.
Amber?
Nothing for me.
Nothing, thanks.
Nothing.
Just thank you to the entire staff for everything that they do and thank you for making the meeting easy for me. That's
All right.
all I've got.
Very good. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.